Testing, 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 testing the microphone on my computer. Oh, oh, Ew, this is embarrassing. Um, Howdy out there, YouTubers, programmers, and procrastinators. My name's Demo440, and welcome to the channel. Today, where not reacting, more or less doing a deep dive on the new locomotives that are being used on Centuries of Steam. And I don't want to bore you for the conversation, so let's get into it, shall we?
Hello everyone, this is Tom, the art director of Studio 346, bringing you another update on our upcoming video game, Century of Steam. I will be subbing in for Mark this month since he is currently on the opposite side of the world doing Australian steam train things right now. Coupled with the fact that myself, Tristan, and a couple of the other devs have been under the weather recently, this month's update will be kept pretty brief just so we have time to go back and recover and to get ready before May's production schedule. As a reminder, April's video, the one you're watching right now, is one of our shorter in-between episodes that we do every other month now. The longer video in March, which was made available a month early to Patreon supporters, was a first look at the new car inspector and facilities UI, the company heads-up display, icebox reefer traffic, payout bonuses based on certain priming of commodities, improved locomotive feel, injector updates, firing updates, point switches with radial stands, a whole 12-mile round trip on Keystone, and actually making money on the railroad and tracking that in the company account for the first time. Just a ton of cool new things for March of 2025. We're super proud of what the team was able to accomplish in the lead up to that video, and we're aiming to expand on the industry and commodity work more in our next big feature devlog in May. A lot of the back-end work done during this month is a continuation of industries, including more UI work and functionality, as well as getting more industries planned. First thing is that in May we'll be going away from Keystone, our Pennsylvania coal map, and jumping back into Inyo, our California and Nevada desert map, covering the Owens Valley of SP narrow gauge, and also the Tonopah mining region just over the hill. If you like that specific flavor of 3-foot narrow gauge, you're in for a real treat this month. A big thing in the works right now is the Nevada-California
Pardon. The last video I've reacted on was a pretty nice video. I honestly quite liked it. Sorry I couldn't do the whole bit. The video was long enough on its own. But, overall, I find it was a very good video. You get to see how you can load up your reefer cars, run your locomotives on a whole section alignment. And I say it turned out pretty good. Sorry for my reaction if I had any bad sayings, but don't get mad at me because I'm trying to tell the truth. Talk to me again when you waited for 3 years of your life for a game you want to have so very badly that you feel that Railroads Online was the worst thing that you ever played. And then talk to me. You're forgetting. There's only one game currently out right now that barely scratches the surface of 3-foot narrow gauge railroading for anyone out there today. It's Railroads Online, and that's it. Centuries of Steam is going to be the new second game to play 3-foot narrow gauge. And one, I really want to play it because one, look how beautiful the locomotives are, the train cars. I can't wait to play this. It looks so fun. So please don't get mad at me. I'm just putting my own opinion out there, so please just stop. Thank you.
Nevada desert map covering the Owens Valley of SP narrow gauge and also the Tonopah mining region just over the hill. If you like that specific flavor of 3-foot narrow gauge, you're in for a real treat this month. A big thing in the works right now is the Nevada, California, Oregon 10-wheelers, currently being modeled by our lead modeler Daniel Gollery. And this is unique in that it fully encompasses two distinct locomotive classes in one: Baldwin Locomotive Works 1026D drawing 42 and 1026D drawing 52. And there are both benefits and challenges to making this work. They more or less share identical boilers, very nearly identical frames, the same drivers, the same tenders for the most part, cab exteriors, and so on, but there are some really notable and frustrating differences that had to be accounted for. Notably, the Drawing 42 engines have Stevenson valve gear, and the Drawing 52 engines have Walschaerts gear. But those aren't the only changes. They also have different cab locations, frame extensions on the Drawing 52, different turrets, different Johnson bars, ostensibly too many brake schedules and piping differences to count, and even different throttle placement. SP numbers 8 and 9 have top-mounted throttles, and SP18 has a backhead throttle, and the cabs move to allow this. Now, Daniel has gone through all of the trouble to get all of that working for a really famous and well-traveled batch of engines, and even in their work-in-progress state right now, they are looking fantastic. The NCO is a railroad that we instantly honed in on as something integral to the story of North American 3-foot narrow gauge because, like the Florence and Cripple Creek, it was one of those railroads that was abandoned fairly early but maintained its equipment well, so its engines and rolling stock got scattered across to a lot of different railroads, including the Pacific Coast Railway, the Southern Pacific, and even the Oahu Railway and Land Company. NCO 8 and 9 survive today as SP 8 and 9, and NCO 12 was later renumbered and became SP 18, which in 2017 became the first of 3 remaining NCO 10-wheelers restored to operation. Daniel has done a spectacular job representing these engines at various stages of their lives, and the NCO customization especially is a really underrated part of their history that needs more recognition. So it's really wonderful to be able to see the full history and context of these engines shine through in the models. Now, one thing you may notice from this montage is that all of these engines have semi-cylindrical tenders, sometimes called whalebacks by rail fans, and while these do tend to only work with
Well, whalebacks, I consider them coffin tanks.
in the models. Now, one thing you may notice from this montage is that all of these engines have semi-cylindrical tenders, sometimes called whalebacks by rail fans, and while these do tend to only work with oil-fueled engines, with exceptions, we do plan on providing a coal burning option, and we will share that in a future vlog. But wait, there's more. The NCO 10-wheelers were the penultimate power on the Keeler branch, but the ultimate power there was this: a General Electric 50-ton diesel locomotive, currently in progress by one of our new modelers, Alec. Built in 1954, this critter was nicknamed Little Giant in a naming contest and was the main power for the branch after number 8 was donated to Sparks, Nevada, and number 18 was donated to Independence, California, with SP number 9 kept in service as emergency backup power until it ceased operations in 1960. But of course, this wasn't the only General Electric end cab diesel on 3-foot gauge in North America. Alec is also representing the export 50-tonners that ran in Guatemala before returning stateside in preservation as Sumter Valley number 720, and also the later 54-tonners owned and operated by the U.S. Gypsum's 3-foot line in Placer City, California, which is now currently one of the only revenue freight hauling narrow gauge lines left in the country. Now, there are slight dimensional changes between the 50-tonners and the 54-tonners, but they shared enough major components that we felt it possible to offer, so now whether you like the SP narrow gauge flavor of them or the Placer City narrow gauge flavor, you'll get to experience both. Alec has been doing a fantastic job with these 50-tonners, and they still have a ways to go, but I hope you can see just from the work in progress that's here that they're really starting to shape up nicely. It's been really exciting to see a lot more modern power start to make it into the game, and for Southern Pacific fans especially, this new duo should give you the Keeler branch touchstones you want, and they'll look right at home on the Inyo map in our future devlogs, where we'll be showing industry interaction and secondary gameplay in a lot more depth. And now we'll do a very brief Q&A segment.
And this is where we're not going to do the Q&A, we're going to do a deep dive on the new engines that we're going to have. First off, let's have a look at the locomotives, shall we? Alright. Alright, Oregon Railway, Baldwin 10-26D, drawing 42. Uh, Kira 1909. Now this engine looks pretty nice. Overall, pretty nice, although the tender, not a big fan. I don't mind that they added oil burning, but it took away the appeal of a coal burning locomotive, although granted, lot less headaches, but more headaches trying to run on oil. And let's go over what the locomotive looks like. So, we have the coffin style tender with the oil reservoir tank and the water reservoir tank. And it looks like that they separated the sheets of metal of this tender into three pieces. You got the one for the oil tank, one and two for the water tank, which is kind of understandable. You want more water than you are your fuel because one, you need water to fill up the boiler than to burn fuel. You got a roof hatch. You got the bell close to the cab. You got the sand dome close to the steam dome, which is understandable because you have these two tanks here. Now, what I do know is that these are air tanks. These are what operates the air brake system that runs the air brakes on the main engine and on the tender. Which, 1909, that's surprisingly, I thought air brakes were more into the 1920s, 1910s, not 1909. But, I guess, live and learn, I guess. And then, this is a obvious oil lamp headlight, so there's no dynamo that runs the dynamo generator that runs the headlight. You got a wood pilot with beautiful wood cow catcher on the front. Well, I guess you can call it a cow catcher. That's what it's technically called. But it's more understandable for trams, not locomotives. But, hard to say. And the steam chest for this locomotive is separated into two pieces. So, you're starting to get into the era where when the steam chests are starting to be casted into separate pieces, which made it easier for maintaining. Heck, Pennsylvania Railroad did the same thing with their K4 Pacifics. Because in the last surviving member, well, one of two last surviving members of the K4 Pacific class, engine 1364? I have to do my research, or... Yeah, 1364, I believe. Her castings has one cylinder that was original to when she was built, and one that was replaced after an accident or a damaged cylinder, so it's kind of nice that they represented that, where there's the era where instead of recasting the whole cylinder chest, they separated it. And as they said, this is a Stephenson's valve gear. Walschaerts is known for having a little extra arabesques hanging off the drivers, which is different on the ways that locomotives were built. Now, if those of you guys who watch like railroading stuff would know that the reason why they went to Walschaerts is for better ease of maintenance on the locomotives. It was more harder to work on the running gear, the valve gear on a Stephenson's than it was on a Walschaerts. And as most of railroaders would know, but I'll tell you guys in my opinions and what I've known, railroads are notoriously penny pinchers. If they have any way to save on money, they would do it. Which is why when diesel trains became more popular, that's what the railroads did. They were penny pinchers to the point that they got rid of locomotives till almost every single locomotive either went extinct or nearly into extinction. So it's nice that Centuries of Steam is going to give us a representation of the 3-foot narrow gauge made by Baldwin and other locomotive manufacturers that helped played a part in our nation's industries when it comes to transporting goods and logistics. And one thing I'll mention, they added, if you see right here, in between the open area between the cab and the tender, there's a handbrake, which is kind of nice. It's a mechanical handbrake, which is common for the 1909s. You're slowly coming into the 2000s, so it's kind of understandable. So next, let's go to drawing 52. Ah, here you go. Now, this one's built by Baldwin, drawing 52 as built. So this would have been one of the... this is how the locomotive would have looked if you bought it straight from the company, if you wanted it as is. So, let's run into it. And oh, I almost forgot. One of the things I failed to mention. On drawing 42, you notice anything different for the front pilot? You have 2 holes in the front guide for the bogie for the engine. Sorry. The bogie helps guide the locomotive down the track, or else the engine would be trying to roll off the tracks without your control. And you wouldn't want that. So here, 1909. That's actually kind of neat that they went for the solid types as they were doing for the tender, but also still kept it hollow. But unlike in drawing number 52, those are properly spoked front guide wheels, front bogie wheels, which is beautifully done. I can't wait to see how these locomotives would look painted and all dolled up for the game. But enough of that. Let's get into it. You got the cab hatch, you got the bell, the domes, and the air tanks all done up, still with the oil headlamp. And this is in 1911, so this is after 1909. And here's something I've noticed. Doesn't that look kind of odd? In the other locomotive, this was solid. So, that means they replaced the front pilot beam from wood to iron. Which is, I guess, understandable. You don't want to waste money changing a front wood pilot beam if you don't have to. And you notice from the other locomotive, the air compressor is right here. I still don't understand what this is. It's probably like an extra thing that, heck, I don't even know. But anyways, without further ado, like I've noticed that this is how I knew that the tanks behind the funnel were air tanks. It's because, one, what else are they used for? They're meant to hold air pressure for the locomotive, because I think around this time they were still trying to figure out how to store air on locomotives for this type. So they wanted a way where it's easier to access and still have it functionable. So they had it up behind the smoke box. Later in the years, they had it under the running board or under the cab. And then, as you know, with some models, like in Railroads Online, the air tanks were also sitting on the tender. You got the front smoke box hanging bracket, where you can hang off from the front. Extra little bits on the front, which is kind of surprising. And I don't know if I can see it from here. I don't know if that front pilot's made of cow catchers made of wood or iron. Huh, that's kind of interesting. But as I was saying, now we saw the Stevensons. This is a Walschaerts. And if you guys paid very good attention, you'd notice from drawing 42 that the cylinder looks kind of normal. The valve, the directional valve for the cylinders is kind of more closer to the smoke box. But on drawing 52, it's more away from the smoke box. And I don't know if the cylinders were bigger. Kind of hard to tell. And overall, I think it's done actually pretty well. And like I said, it would be easier to work on a Walshart's valve gear than a Stevenson's. Because, one, you have to squeeze in through the running gear to access the Stevenson's, while the Walshart's is outside the frame. Now that's a pretty handy thing to do on maintenance, which I think is going to make it kind of interesting on how you're going to maintain your locomotives and figure out your cost effectiveness to keep these locomotives running. So pay attention on that when this game comes out. Choose what locomotives you want, but please be careful. And I don't know if I saw this, but if any of you guys seen it, I probably missed it. That they probably replaced the front and rear wooden pilot beams for the tender, but I probably was there. But overall, yeah, and they also changed the air brake system here too. Well, same on the tender, but not on the locomotive. Anyways, next engine. This is drawing number 42 from Baldwin, dated 1904. You're still running Stevenson's, and I think that was built from the company. And here's your cut lever for the front pilot. And oh, here you go, the cow catcher's now made of iron with pipes. And oh, 1904, you have electric generators to run your headlights. And I don't know if I saw this correctly, but did any of you see these extra pipes on the tank? I know what they are. They're meant to cool off the air when it's going into the tanks, because when it comes off from the compressor, it's still warm coming out. If you guys ever owned an air compressor, you guys would know how hot that thing gets when after a long run. Overall, not much change. They added the marker lights, which wasn't on the other two engines. And now they have solid wheel casts for the front bogie. Overall, nothing much change. Air brake is still roughly the same. Cab is still the same for the other two drawings. And yeah, I guess that's about it. Now on to drawing 52 that they show. It's solid here, but it's round on the other model. Yeah, it's round and not bent sharply. If you guys ever watched Mayday, you guys know that the sharper an angle is, the more strain it's going to cause in that area where it's going to cause problems. But enough of that. Right? Hatch on cab, dynamo, bell, sand dome, steam dome, electric headlamp, metal front pilot. So it's basically the same from the other drawing design. So there's nothing much here to see. Except it's dated 1937. 19, drawing number 42, 1955. You got your headlight shroud, you got your dynamo, the bells where the air tanks should have been, but the air tanks are now down below. With a strange extra reservoir? Question mark? And, if you guys saw from other models, sorry I didn't point it out, the water injector is no longer inside the cab, it's outside. Probably makes space, and oh, I guess the window design changed? I guess I didn't notice that, sorry. But overall, not much change. You have the wooden pilot, the metal cow catcher, which is also a different design. The cut levers changed. And you guys are wondering, why did I point out the headlight shroud? That's because we are in 1955. Now, this was after 1945, but this was after World War II, and some locomotives were taken from railroads to help assist in the war effort. Some engines came back, some didn't, and you know what happened to those who didn't. But this one, I'm assuming, and it's sometimes wrong to assume, but I'm just going to assume anyway. I'm assuming this one came back after being used for the military. And when I pointed out the headlight shroud, it's because in World War II, you don't want a locomotive that doesn't have a headlight shroud. It gives you away way too easily. So, this was more or less protection for the locomotives than design choice. And you got railings, toolboxes, and a headlight on the tender. If you saw on the other locomotives, there were no headlights on the rear tenders. Dynamos, air compressor, yeah, everything's all the same here. Marker lights, yep. And you see the separation between the oil tank and water tank. And now we're in 1955 returned. Oh wait, the other one said rebuilt, didn't it? No, returned. So this one's been returned. So this one was also used during World War II. Headlight shroud, dynamo, bell, and you guys probably saw with the other locomotives that there was an extra pipe here. This is the exhaust pipe for the air compressor. And the tanks were before right here, but now they're over here. With a Walschaerts valve gear, front metal pilot, solid casted wheels. I guess the solid cast came after World War II, because then you didn't want wheels that were easily destroyed now, would you? Plus, it was cheaper to cast a full wheel set than to make a custom one. And number board on the headlight, number board on the rear tail light, headlight, and one toolbox. And I probably failed to notice, or point out, they added a toolbox behind the cab. And you don't see the mechanical handbrake, but it's probably on the other side, so you don't get to see it. Although, I wish we have a site to look at these 3D models so we can get a real deep dive on these locomotives. I'll probably look on this site here, Studio 346. Oh, copyrighted Studio 346. Damn it. Oh well. And yeah, nothing much here. Now, I understand that they pointed this one out, which is understandable, but the locomotive's not even similar to what the thing belongs to. This one, I'm assuming, is a 462, which is a Pacific type. Which one, that's a standard gauge locomotive next to a standard gauge engine. So one, the hell. But I guess they're just showing what can come around and what we should expect from the locomotive and running setup. And I see the mechanical handbrakes right here for the coal operated model. So you can get the option to run it on coal or to run it on oil. Pick your battles. Coal probably would change depending on price, and again, not all railroads had their own coal mine to refurbish their locomotives and keep them running. Now, time to look at the last one or two drawings of the locomotives before we get to the diesels. 1960s. Man, this locomotive drawing has been a long time coming. You got electric headlights now, smaller than those standards that would have came with this other early locomotives of this type. Running boards are longer and stop after just before the cylinders. Well before the cylinders. Wooden front pilot beam, metal cowcatcher, and now they added air brake lines. If you saw in the other locomotives, they didn't add those. They weren't there. So I guess it was in those early days they didn't add the air brake lines, or maybe they did and I didn't notice. Marker lamps, and if you guys paid a very good attention, the sand dome is farther away from the steam dome. And you want to know why? It's because the air tank's no longer behind the funnel. So they moved the sand dome to be more up front. But they didn't change the way sand goes to the wheels. So I don't see the point, but to teach their own, I guess. Dynamo, rear electric lamp, toolbox. Nothing much changed. Now to the diesels. Now, I know it's a preference between some people, but one, I prefer to run steam engines than to run diesels. If I do pick diesels, I'd only run them as yard shunting engines. Or to only run freight, never passenger or work. Or I think that's what they primarily did before they decided to kick steam engines to the curb. But I know from the Great Railroad, steam engines are the kings of the high iron. And to me, personally, diesels are nothing but slaves. I know slaves are a bad term to say, but one, they took away the steam engine era. They destroyed every single steam engine out there. They were the cause of why we don't have steam engines anymore. So don't blame me for what I say. They deserve what I say. Sure, they're useful, but I'll never, ever respect them. Sure, they're a great mechanical marvel, but one, you destroyed a great historical era. So don't blame me of me being mad at these types of engines. I don't care about diesels as much as I can throw them. I care about steam engines as much as I love them, which is more than these buggers. But that's enough of my talking. You got high railings on the climbing boards. You got the stirrups on the front and back, so for easy shoving applications. Then you got the snowplow. The high handrails are taken away, and then the stirrups are replaced by front snowplows. I think this was later on in the era. And as it said, present day. The other one, 1954. And they added a extra breather for the unit. Or extra cooling for the unit's engines. which I guess understandable if you're clearing snow. You want more cooling application for the engine because you're working extra hard. And I know other people pointed this out. These aren't used for marker lamp brackets. I understand, but you can technically use them for marker lamp notifications. And this is the other diesel, dated 1956. You got the fuse box has been changed, been shortened, extra breathing for the cooling system, and then extended on the hood. Although, oh, okay, I noticed this weird looking thing, but then I realized you can't get into the locomotive on the driver's side. You get in from the passenger side. Well, the engineer's side. Which I guess understandable, and they got rid of the handles to get up on the engine closer to the cab and more on the hood. Now the question is that with steam locomotives you can change out the stirrups or whatever you have on the front for snowplows, and then put them back to normal afterwards. AKA is what Mark says, equip bayonet, or attach bayonet. But for diesels, I think it's more you choose to keep it on or take it off. Which I think there's no in between. Present day, which means this as locomotive present day. And they changed the one-way handle and added the same on the other side for the drawing handle. And I think they changed in the rear. And also, they got rid of the stirrups like on the other engine and put the snowplow. I think the snowplow is something that you attach on and just forget about. Maybe, yeah, I could see this as a maintenance engine. Well, that's all I got. Let's get into the Q&A, shall we?
Q&A segment here to cover questions some of you had about our March devlog video, which was the revenue run in Keystone with the Baldwin 1024E. The Trainiac asks, sorry if this has been answered before, but how will the job system be set up? Will it be more of a contract system based like the one in Railroader, or more of a self-management system like Derail Valley's way of giving you a bunch of different options? So as we've talked about in prior videos, we want two options between structured and freestyle selection of what goods to haul, but neither Railroader nor Derail Valley are necessarily what we want to do for either setup. For structured gameplay, we are leaning more towards scenarios, basically timed world events that vary from decade to decade, with bronze, silver, and gold conditions to be met. We always felt this was a fun format for structured gameplay, and it's pretty easy for players to understand, and it's also a very flexible framework through which to experience different kinds of world and economic events from the Railroad's perspective. And of course, this is all separate from a purely creative sandbox mode with no objectives or money involved, so if you just want to hop in and run a train, we got you covered there too.
Yeah, that's what I want. I want to run trains without worrying about keeping a deadline. Which, I understand that's different to what people want, but do you really want to be stressed about running logistics hauls when you already are doing a 9-to-5 job on top of playing a video game at night? I don't think so.
Matthew Hume asks, the last devlog showed a fast clock. Will that be adjustable? And yes, it will. We adjusted it so that the amount of time it would take to run from one end of Keystone to the other, about a 12-mile round trip, would take about a full day from sunrise to sunset for the specific feeling we wanted to evoke in bookending the devlog. But with the exception of maybe certain scenarios which are tied to night running or a specific time frame within, say, a day or a couple of days, the time of day is purely cosmetic, and we intend to allow you to set it to whatever speed or fixed time of day you want. Razzle then asks, are there any other games you could point to as inspirations for how you want the economic system to work in Century of Steam? And our answer has been and always will be Railroad Tycoon 3. Best game to ever do it, hands down. Highly recommend the RT3 retrospective video on this channel. It was very underwatched compared to our other vids we've put out, but there's a reason that game has endured longer than many train games before or since, and there's a reason we are looking at it and looking at how to evolve that formula for the next generation of games. It still holds up well, it's charming, it's got great design, it's got a very good dynamic economy. Honestly, I think it still has the best economic sim of, I think, any game.
Which I understand would be kind of nice. And also, the time of day, personally for me, I want it to be real life realistic. So, if I'm playing Centuries of Steam and I'm running a train, I don't want it to be nighttime in the morning. God, you know how annoying that would be? I want to run daytime in daytime, and I want to run at night. So if I'm on the weekend and I don't have anything to do, I like to run my trains at night, enjoying the night run at night, and then wake up in the mornings. Like say, if I knew my friends and I are gonna have a playing session, I'd wake up in the morning, start up the server, and go back to sleep. Or no, I'll keep the server running 24/7, and then it's like, night, folks, night. And then I pass out and wake up in the morning, and then start doing my operations. You know, to make it really realistic. And that does beg the question: you guys seen those anime English dub stories where people end up getting trapped inside a video game, right? Now they end up dying because they end up getting killed in game. Well, if I got trapped in Centuries of Steam, I would enjoy it. I would enjoy playing on a steam engine, or driving a steam engine, living my life. Because one, no steam engine exists running on the main line today. So if I had a chance to drive a steam engine to make a living, I'd do it. Besides, I know how to operate a steam engine than anyone else I know. And I'd gladly teach anyone else how to operate it just so we can get the game done.
It has genuinely done things that most games after it, even in the train tycoon genre, have never done, and it still is the gold standard. And finally, Colonel Cactus asks, what major industries are planned for each map? Now, industries will vary depending on the region. For example, you wouldn't have an oil field or a coal mine up in Ponderosa because historically there was no local oil or coal to be sourced in the Lake Tahoe region. Now, that being said, you can still import coal or oil for running your fleet, and maybe in certain regions it's going to be a little more expensive based on the cost it would take to import those things in there, but you will still have access to all three fuel types in each level. It's just that cost-benefit analysis and the local benefit of one versus the other is going to change. But without
Which is why I said, when you guys run your locomotives, be careful on what kind of fuels you take.
giving away too much of the specific or smaller industries, because there's a lot of overlap given every region will support common carrier status, things like mail trains, passengers, express freight, and so on. Ponderosa, which is our Sierra Nevada logging map, has an emphasis on logging and tourism. Keystone, our Pennsylvania Appalachian map, has an emphasis on coal mining, iron mining, and small-scale agriculture. San Juan, our Colorado Rocky Mountain map, has an emphasis on gold and silver mining and seasonal stock rushes, and then Inyo starts as a silver mining and large-scale agricultural region, but then it very abruptly changes to non-precious mineral traffic in the later years after around 1913 or so. And the reason for that, and I'm not joking here, is because Los Angeles happened. Seriously, go look up the California Water Wars, it's some crazy stuff. Anyway, that's all we have time for this month. We need to keep this video brief so that we can all recover from being sick and start getting ready for May's production schedule. But we'll try to answer in writing some more of the questions that you guys had sent us. Once again, we want to thank each and every one of our patrons over at patreon.com/studio346 for helping us and making this game possible. And for as little as $2 a month, each Century of Steam devlog is available 1 month early for patrons so that you can be as up to date with our progress as possible. And once again, we would like to thank all of you as our viewers for caring about what we do, and we hope to see you again next month in the May devlog back at Inyo. Take care, and we'll see you there.
And there you guys have it. That is the Centuries of Steam not devlog, but short stop to show us what has recently been done. And I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for clicking on this channel, and please don't forget to like and subscribe and share it to your friends and relatives if you guys wish. And don't forget to give Studio 346 your love and support. Thank you guys all for watching. Adios and goodbye.